to panel's Ask the Experts. I'm Reg Harbert. Today I'm here with my friend and colleague Jeff Cherrington, who is the VP of Product Management and Infrastructure Modernization at Rocket Software USA, to talk about hybrid cloud and the mainframe. Be sure to check out event resources on the left side of your screen and click on the drop-down menu for more resources on today's topic. Now, Jeff has worked in enterprise technology with global software providers for over 30 years, working on the leading edge of critical market trends, including the first integrations of client-server call centers with mainframe backends, advanced applications of cryptography for regulatory data privacy and protection, and hyper-automation. Jeff, welcome.
Reg, it's a pleasure. It's good to be speaking with you again.
Always a pleasure. So let's dig into this hybrid cloud topic here. Hybrid cloud is an evolving strategy that can look different across organizations depending on size, infrastructure, and even industry. How does Rocket Software define hybrid cloud?
You know, that's an interesting question and one of something of continuing debate. As we've gone to market, as we've worked internally, I have the good fortune that I work with Phil Buckaloo, who is president of our business unit and came to us after running IBM Cloud for 5 years. He certainly has a great deal of experience and a great deal of perspective. And we both indulge in the appropriate professional, healthy conflict, a little bit of debate. As I look at the academic definitions, if you look at what hybrid cloud was originally said to be, it was the combination of one or more public clouds with a private cloud. That's the canonical definition. And industry-wide, it's evolved a bit. It's evolved to mean not just cloud technology stacks, but the other heritage technology stacks that enterprises have and that they depend on to deliver their unique value to the marketplace. Now, the interesting parts of this are, as we've talked through this, Bill, from his perspective, has excluded the private cloud, the enterprise cloud, because he says you don't get the elasticity from the pricing and the consumption from a private cloud you do from a public cloud. And I've pushed back on that a little bit because so many of my customers do have private clouds for certain things that they do, and they do want them integrated. Even more interesting, to answer your question directly, we at Rocket are evolving the discussion to speak less about hybrid cloud and more about hybrid infrastructure, not just based on my opinion or Phil's, but on the advice of some industry analysts, such as the folks we work with at Gartner. Because at the end of the day, what we find working with our large enterprise customers around the world is the realization has come forward that there are parts of it that either will not or cannot effectively move into a cloud architecture. The idea of taking an advanced transaction processing system that's perhaps been built over a course of 30 years and contains enormous amounts of the business logic that represents unique value that an enterprise contributes and move it into the cloud is one, difficult, two, risky, and three, hard to cost justify, because at the end of the day, what do you end up with? Well, you either end up with exactly what you had before after a long time, lots of cost and a high risk, or you inserted more risk into the process and tried to make it different or better as you were heading in that direction. And so many enterprises have stubbed their toe in that and had to retrench and start over again.
I like that. I really like that. You know, for me, the term cloud has always felt deliberately nebulous, perhaps pun intended. You know, and it's kind of funny. On the one hand, we've seen those bumper stickers, the cloud is just somebody else's computer. And on the other hand, the folks are saying, well, the managed services of the mainframe in the 60s and 70s, that's the original cloud. The only issue is, of course, that, as you change the definition of cloud and, focus on elasticity or qualities of service or all these other things, that one of the things you discover is that it really resists definition by its very nature of being cloud. So I like that idea of really focusing it on the infrastructure instead. Based on your discussion then with industry analysts and customers could maybe give us a perspective about the current trends for hybrid cloud adoption or maybe hybrid infrastructure adoption and some of the key challenges customers are facing as they develop these hybrid cloud or infrastructure strategies.
Absolutely. And anxious to talk about it because what you'll find is that it'll evoke another keen interest of mine in terms of our professional shared experience, and that's hyper automation. To go to it directly, what we find more and more is that, as I said, the realization is that there are parts of the heritage infrastructure that will persist for extended periods of time, whether it's mainframe applications, distributed applications, things that maybe even been built early in cloud, but don't reflect all of the contemporary cloud architectural designs. Again, it goes back to where do I invest my time? Where do I invest my money? Where do I bear risk? There are parts of it that work perfectly fine and will continue to work perfectly fine in perpetuity. But every organization is shifting how they view technology, shifting away from the technology silo-centric view of, oh, I'll build the piece I need in mainframe and then, that's done. I'll go build the next piece I need in my distributed infrastructure and that will be done. And then I'll build the final piece in the cloud as if it was three independent things when the actual intent is a value stream that reflects how the organization actually makes money. The line of business owner doesn't want to have to go, mainframe, are you okay? Distributed, are you okay? Cloud, are you okay? He wants to ask, are we okay? And get an answer. Or she wants to ask, are we okay? And get an authoritative answer. And so that really presses on a couple of things. The first is, all of these things provide the opportunity to process, and they give the option to ensure that a workload, whatever it may be, can be processed on the architecture and the tech stack that is optimal for it. Now, Rocket Software, being one of the leading providers of mainframe software in the world, will say, and I believe with credibility and authority, there are some workloads that should always exist on the mainframe. There is no better platform for high-speed, real-time online transaction processing in the world. And I will die on that hill because I've worked in that industry since the 80s and have stood in the data centers and seen the kinds of volumes of transactions that are being processed per second. And the platform is equally good at dealing with very complex, very, very dense workloads for batch processing, such as the industries I came from, electronic payments, required to run every night. That combination makes it the best platform for doing the back-end processing for a lot of things like commercial banking and banking for individuals with their checking accounts and savings accounts, certainly the e-payment system, our federal and national governments and the things that they provide to us. On the other hand, I don't think anybody will dispute that at this point in time, the best place to do machine learning algorithm development is in the cloud. The tools are there. The ability to use capacity on consumption, take advantage of that elasticity I spoke to earlier, makes it an ideal place for ending up with good, solid algorithms that give good, solid results, regardless of where they transact. Now, the challenge comes in is, well, what happens when what's needed to develop a new algorithm is data that is only contained in a heritage mainframe database? Set aside DB2. DB2 is largely a SQL database, but there are still tremendous amounts of data that are only managed within a IBM subsystem like an IMS database or a VSAM dataset, and those require mainframe skills to extract and make available to the cloud. And then you've got the choice of, well, what's going to happen? How do I continue to process as I go forward? what we're seeing in the industry as a solution that seems to be extremely viable is data virtualization. There are tools and techniques, not the least of which from Rocket, that allow enterprises to quickly present data from some of these heritage IBM mainframe subsystems, whether it's IMS, VSAM, SMF, or even sequential flat files, as if they were SQL tables. And SQL, standard query language development, is probably the most easily available skill amongst all developers worldwide. And that gives the opportunity then that you can pull the data that you need from the mainframe, from these heritage databases, go ahead and move it up to the cloud to create your algorithms. And the really interesting space for me, because again, part of my history was with security, as you mentioned, I see that the development of really potent algorithms then taken back onto the mainframe, where they'll process using the Telum chip in the new Z16s, which will give tremendous performance advantages. One group I've worked with who developed algorithms like this for payments and for fraud detection say, as we take a look at the payments processing capacity and construction available in distributed or cloud, we could maybe execute 3 or 4 inferences within the time span of, say, a credit card authorization transaction, because I don't want to stand at the point of sale waiting for something to click through. They've got very, very low latency requirements. On the Telum chip, they believe that they're going to be able to process as many as 20. And the consequence is better fraud detection, using information that's aggregated not just from the mainframe, but from all the other sources that a cloud can pull in, whether it's social, whether it's demographic, whether it is from other systems that an organization might have, that informs us more and more about what a customer is, what a customer wants, and what actions they just never take, which could be an indication of fraud.
Cool. Well, that sort of segues nicely to our next question, and that is, what are some of the top use cases for hybrid cloud, especially within the organizations that depend on the IBM zSystems main?
Well, certainly that was one that I tend to focus on, because it is part and parcel of where I've spent so much of my career. I'll always be a big proponent of high-speed, real-time online transaction processing for anything relating to financial networks. It's the best in the world for that, for sure. But as we think about this broadly, I think there are great opportunities for some genuinely enhanced customer interaction applications that are cloud-centric. They're able to pull this information from a mainframe in the different manners that I've discussed to create what is the financial picture. Perhaps I've got a mainframe where it processes their own personal bank accounts. Perhaps they've got a relationship that is wealth management. And these are applications and systems that have been in place and have run effectively for decades. No reason to replace them. But they can bring the data into the cloud now. And as I said earlier, marry it with social, marry it with demographic, marry it with the myriad of data sources that are available to help us profile our customers at the individual level and give them customized service. I really think this is going to be very, very much a trend with my investment banking customers and their wealth management divisions, even of the banks that are not specifically investment banking but do have wealth management practices.
You remind me of Chris Anderson's book, The Long Tail, that came out about 2 decades ago now, about just how the internet and computing are going to allow us to extremely customize everything. And sort of interesting to hear you talk about, on the one hand, the elasticity, on the other hand, the customization. And maybe if you can kind of bring that together as you talk about the role that vendors and MSPs can play in helping shape and support customers' hybrid cloud strategies.
Well, I think the MSPs are essential. We work with the largest MSPs around the world and are helping them develop their strategies. One thing that's genuinely interesting that we've seen coming forward, and particularly from the MSPs, is an increased emphasis on using open source on mainframe to aid in all the things that we've described, of making the data available and being able to present it to the cloud in formats that make it consumable and easy. We are, at the leading edge of the industry, where the use of things like Git and Bash are now becoming customary. And some of the larger MSPs we work with are making that just a foundational assumption that they're going to have on ZOS all of the same open source packages that they're used to seeing on a distributed world or used in the cloud, and to be used in the same way, which leads to a longer tail, if I can pick up the metaphor that you voiced, for the mainframe. Because now young people entering the industry who will become, as I like to style them, the emerging mainframers, to replace those that may have decades of experience but are now retiring and leaving the workforce, they can pick up tools that they were trained to in uni, that they can then perhaps have had practice with in their professional careers and distributed, but then use them in exactly the same way on the mainframe as they would elsewhere to develop the applications that are needed to make the best use of the data that they have from the mainframe.
Cool. So that said, as we take a look forward with all these opportunities, looking to the new generation, looking to the new technologies, from your perspective, what is the next step in the evolution of the hybrid cloud or hybrid cloud strategies, or of course just hybrid infrastructure?
So I think that brings us back to the theme of hyper automation, because we do have good opportunities now to coordinate the applications, the value stream, as I say, from end to end across all tech stacks to make an end-to-end application. There is, in the current world, an overemphasis on doing that as manual craft work from the resources of the enterprise. So that would be the kind of thing, Reg, that you or I have done across our career, where we will sit down and we'll write some scripting because we need to get something from point A to point B, or we need to make sure that a job kicks off when a prior job finishes on disparate platforms. And that's okay, but it is not scalable and it is not sustainable. If you, again, I know from personal experience, there's still some scripting running at one of my prior employers that I wrote, and God help the poor individual who ever has to go in and look at my spaghetti code and figure out what it was doing and why. I'd like to think that I do good commenting of my code, but all of us know what it's like to pick up somebody else's code. And that's the problem with doing the scripting for coordination across these disparate tech stacks. What's needed is the ability to automate the entire process end to end so it is fully synchronized, fully coordinated, fully visible from a single pane of glass, regardless of whether it is a action that needs to be taken through a heritage mainframe 3270 green screen because that's the only user interface that's presented, or it's through API integration, or through any of the other myriad ways in which hyperautomation can give us what the analysts say is the trend of the industry now, which is automate everything you can and automate end to end. And again, certainly we at Rocket are on the leading edge of that. We try to avoid the bleeding edge, but on the leading edge of that by providing options to customers, whether they want to manage their workload automation for all their tech stacks from mainframe to cloud, from a cloud console, from a mainframe hosted console, from a distributed hosted console, or even from a cloud hosted console.
Cool. Now, as I mentioned at the beginning, on the left side of your screen, you can take a look at the event resources and take a look at the drop down. But complementary to that, maybe if you can just talk about some of the resources that are available that Rocket can recommend or offer.
Well, thank you for pointing that out, Reg. And certainly there are a number of things there. We've got on our website something that is still currently branded hybrid cloud. You may see that messaging evolve over time as we move from a hybrid cloud to a hybrid infrastructure messaging. But it really is not material. Most people will read hybrid cloud as meaning all of my technology, not just my private cloud or my public cloud. And there are some talks that Phil Buckaloo has given. As I said, Phil is our president, has tremendous experience that I respect highly, and certainly would believe that anybody who listens to him speak will feel much the same. He's given some terrific perspectives in some of his recent interviews that are useful, as well as a number of different artifacts and resources that we hope that our listeners here today will take advantage of.
Well, thank you so much, Jeff. This has been really interesting, fascinating, and valuable. So get all the latest on all things tech by going to techchannel.com/subscribe and enjoy the rest of your day. I'm Reg Harbeck.